Walter Carter here, with not just any electric guitar, the very first one. This guitar was made by the Rickenbacker company in 1932, although it wasn't known yet as Rickenbacker. The company was known as Pat-In, and no one really knows what that stood for. It quickly became Electro String Instrument Company with the brand Rickenbacker, named after one of the company owners, Adolf Rickenbacker. Prior to this guitar, people had been trying to make guitars louder for 50 years or more. And the main way they were doing it was by making the guitars larger. And there's a practical limit to that. In the 20s, a company owned by the Doppera brothers figured out a way to make them louder, still acoustically, but with a vibrating resonator cone, much like putting a passive loudspeaker in a guitar body. But again, that had its limits. Once electrical amplification came about in the mid-20s, people started trying to apply that to guitar. If you take a coil of wire, take a magnet and put it in that coil and just move it back and forth, it creates a current. So people tried to apply that to guitar. The part of the guitar that actually makes the sound is the vibrating top. So they tried to attach the magnet or the vibrating part to the top and capture those vibrations and then amplify them. It worked, but not very well. In the early 30s, a fellow who was associated both with the Doppera brothers and with Adolf Rickenbacker, his name was George Beecham. He was a vaudeville player of Hawaiian guitars. He came up with the idea. It seems obvious now. If you look at a top when it's vibrating, you can't see the vibration. If you look at a string, you can actually see the movement of the string. It would stand to reason that that's a stronger source for vibrations. He just ran a metal string into a magnetic field, in this case, a couple of horseshoe pickups, and got a much stronger signal. They made a prototype guitar that had a little body about that big around and a neck. It's known today as a frying pan style. Then they made a lap steel for sale, and then they made this guitar. This guitar is the first one that was made to play in the Spanish style. This looks like maybe a tenor guitar body that the Regal company would have made for use by Dobro or National. Who knows where they got a neck with 17 frets clear of the body, but they slapped a neck on, cut out the top, put the pickup on. You didn't have guitar amps at that time. You would hook it up to the amplification system for your radio or record player through two little jacks here. Later, somebody put a standard 1/4-inch guitar jack on this. This guitar worked great. It needed some amplifiers that could handle the sound, but that's the principle that pretty much every electric guitar since then still operates on. The sound of this guitar is every bit as useful and viable as any instrument in this shop. It still took a while to catch on because the sound was new. It's a rare moment in the history of any kind of inventions that somebody gets it right out of the box. The first example is still a viable instrument. If you look at automobiles, the first automobile would be unrecognizable. If you look at computers, they ran on tubes. You look at television. But this guitar is as viable today as it was back then. What's even more important, it's rare that you can pinpoint cultural changes to an exact moment or pinpoint the source. Rickenbacker made this guitar in 1932. That same year, there was a band leader from Wichita, Kansas. His name was Gage Brewer. He liked to take vacations in the South Pacific. On his way back, he decided to stop off at the National factory because he was playing National guitars in his band. They had their new Rickenbacker Pat-In electric guitar. He said, "I'll take one." He bought a lap steel, and then he bought this guitar. Took it back to Wichita. The newspaper ran a story. He was going to debut his new electric guitar at the Halloween dance in 1932. And that was when the world first saw a Spanish neck electric guitar. The electric guitar became the instrument of rock and roll, which had an influence on our culture and hairstyles, dress, attitudes, all of that stuff comes from right here, the first viable electric guitar.